yet another BW Business World podcast. We also play it on BW Legal World and BW Wellbeing World. Life is a breeze if you're free, but freedom has different connotations for different people. Today we are going to talk to my guest for whom freedom meant many things. It meant liberation and finding her purpose, if I may have to say. She also creates freedom for others. Before you think, who is this person? Let me let the cat out of the bag. Today we are going to talk to Miss Vandana Shah, who is India's top celebrity divorce lawyer. Her personal journey of going through a divorce and building and rebuilding her own life, and then creating a support system, a support group for people who go through divorces, writing her first book on, what should be the viewpoint of a litigant, looking at divorce from a litigant's viewpoint, writing her second book, The X Files, about her personal journey and how she came back to life. She used divorce as a springboard to a new life. And now her third book is coming. It's called PhD. Before you think it's permanent head damage or a doctorate in philosophy, no, it's none of that. It's polyhill divorces. So she's writing about rich people's divorces. Today, we're going to talk to Ms. Vandana Shah, India's top celebrity divorce lawyer. Ms. Shah, thank you for talking to me.
Thank you very much.
And I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm glad that we met. Our paths crossed really fortuitously. I think we were meant to meet. Thank you, Dr. Batra, for having me here, and thank you for your humility and your extreme abundance of generosity in encompassing me in your world.
You're very kind. It takes a generous person to acknowledge generosity in others. But today the conversation is about you.
Thank you.
First of all, do you like this title, Celebrity Divorce Lawyer?
I love being a lawyer.
Okay.
Let me tell you that. Rest are all, I think, titles which make others feel good. And sometimes I must admit, even I feel good. When people say India's top divorce lawyer, I feel higher. I've done something in life. To reach the pinnacle of your field, you feel good. And I'm sure my parents, who still govern my life from the heaven up above, I'm sure my parents are really proud of me. So I think it's for them who gave up so much of themselves to creating me that I'm very proud of these titles.
Now let me go. We'll come to your journey. But let me start from your beginnings and let me address you first name with your permission.
Sure, of course.
You one night came from Ambala.
That's right.
You came to study in Mumbai. Then you worked as a model.
That's
you
right.
worked in advertising.
That's right.
That.
That's
and
right.
And then you became a lawyer.
That's right.
Give a sense of how your journey has played out.
My dad was an Air Force pilot. He fought 3 wars for the country. And, it's a transferable job. And we were all over the place. But Ambala was a place that Papa really liked. So we spent a huge chunk of our childhood there. And I think being a Fauji kid really shapes you. You become a global citizen. And mom was essentially from Mumbai. So after Papa passed away, we moved here. And I went to St. Xavier's College, I think the best college in the world, and studied there. And during the course of all of that, I did modeling. I tried my hand at RJing. I tried my hand at being a ramp walk model. I think I found a little success, but a lot of joy in all of that. And
what's more important, success or joy?
I think if you do something you love, you will always be joyous. So your success, can be governed by the choice of your profession, or sometimes the profession, like in my case, my profession chose me. I don't think I was that clear that I will definitely be a lawyer. I knew I'll work. Papa was always clear that you must work, you must have your own independence, you must have your own money, and you must stand on your own 2 feet. So he was very progressive. I call him as the first feminist in my life. And my mom, of course, supported him. She was gorgeous homemaker. And she was so supportive of me, and she gave me this unlimited love And I think that is very important because life throws all these, boomerangs at you and everything. And, to protect yourself from all of that, the shield of armor that your parents create, I think that's very important.
But now let me ask you, you became a lawyer.
Yes.
You became a divorce lawyer. Your own story, your own journey of going through the divorce and then
That's
being
right.
empathetic to both sides.
That's right.
Though I've heard you say when a woman comes to me and she says, my husband is powerful, he's a politician, he's an actor, that's when you need Vandana Shah.
That's right. That is true.
You want to be empathetic to both.
That's
Men
right.
are not just the villain in every
Not
story.
at all. Not at all. Like I say, so I'll take it in two parts. So essentially, my journey as a lawyer started. I got married in a really rich family, and I think rich families come with their own baggage, lots of it. And when you open that baggage, a lot of it is abusive. Preconceived notions, abusive. They are extremely patriarchal. And I think, in my book X Files, I'm just going to take a copy for a minute. In one of the chapters, I write that they expect the bahu to be come in a specific mold. You enter, you have this life before you come in, get into this bahu of rich family mold, and that's it. You're good to go. But they don't realize it takes time. So I think. On this one night when I was literally pushed out of my house.
750 rupees.
750 rupees. And that is where my journey started. And it takes but I think, like I keep on saying that, my parents taught me well. And Papa and Mom both were not alive at that stage. So I was pretty much on my own. And I just feel that, and I say it, I felt it even then, I feel it even now, that at least I was alive.
And you said, and I really believe in it again, my favorite author, Randy Pausch, he did his last lecture.
Correct.
And he wrote this book called The Last Lecture.
Correct.
And his experience is what you get when you don't get what you want.
Correct.
And nothing is failure in life. Everything is an experience.
That's right.
A person never fails if you learn.
Correct.
You said, in India, which is true, that people feel a person has had a divorce, he or she has failed.
Correct.
Which is absolutely not true.
Not true.
The marriage, that particular marriage may have failed, another marriage may get successful, another relationship may get successful, which may not culminate in marriage.
Correct.
But you're a great example that your marriage didn't work, but your life has worked.
My life has worked. My
so
life
tell
has
us,
worked.
What has made that happen? Before it's your parents' blessing,
yes,
God's benevolence, but beyond that, it's very, if I may use sexy to say, I did this right, and it looks glamorous from out.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure it must be a lot of effort, work, struggle, especially in the initial days.
I mean, there's, so I just want to say that, you see, I never back down from a challenge, and I think that, so I became a lawyer also because whilst I was going through my divorce, and, this lawyer, I showed her the document. You see, you're going through a divorce, but people treat you like now you're brainless or you're invisible, you don't exist. It's like, don't talk to me. So, okay. So I pointed out to her, I think we have forgotten to write this in the petition. So she looked at me really angrily and she says, are you a lawyer? I said, no, I'm not a lawyer. When you become one, talk to me. And even through those dark moments, I said, yeah, I'm getting an open challenge. Chalo, ban jate hain lawyer. So
Prime Minister
I think maybe वो भी दिन आ जाएगा, so yeah, so and I just felt that I think this is something which I need to do. So I had good marks, and I went and enrolled in the law college, and I studied, and that's where my journey started. But honestly, whilst in that journey, my divorce took like 10 years, and being in that journey, yes, it taught me a lot, and somewhere in the first 2-3 years, I understood that it cannot only be about misery. It has to be something that I have to learn from it, and maybe something that I can do with it. So, how to turn that into a little positive experience than this whole stigma riddled, situation of divorce. I call it like situationship. People still say that. A lot of times people say, talk about relationships to us. I say, I'll talk about relationships, but I am essentially speaking about divorce, because divorce is the stigma that we need to speak about a lot more
when I was younger,
in India.
From a very middle class family. My parents are academicians, my mother is in heaven, my dad is about to be 87. And I ऐसे बोलते हैं divorcee है. Whether male or female, it didn't matter. Maybe when I was younger, a little harsher.
Yeah.
But, divorcee,
yeah, it's like हाँ की हो गया, and they always has like उसकी बात मत सुनो तो divorcee है. It's like, my God, yeah, divorcee है, murderer तो नहीं है. You know what I'm saying? Divorcees are sometimes treated and looked down upon more than what a criminal would.
Sure.
And I felt that is something that needed to change. And I set up India's first support group for people going through divorce. 360 degrees back to life. And I felt that, like I was being judged. One of the only things that I wanted in that group was non-judgmental support.
Very difficult.
Very difficult.
Because as humans, we are judging how you look,
correct,
what you speak.
Correct.
We know everyone, you can't judge a person in 5 minutes.
Correct.
We are judging
correct
by where he lives, how he looks, how he speaks, what he does. But we are judgmental, so to do that takes a lot of effort. Wow.
You see, I'm okay if you judge me on my first look and say, okay, she looks like this, she's this. What I'm not okay with is, these are people who you've known. This is your nephew, this is your niece going through a divorce. Don't you know them forever? And you're still judging them just because a marriage has failed? So, our whole thing was non-judgmental support. We will accept you and we will guide you regardless of anything. And over a period of 10 years, we ended up counseling around 10,000 people.
Beautiful.
That was really fantastic, because we did it through lectures, we did it through various, I counsel you, you counsel 5, so kind of like pay it forward. I didn't even know it's called pay it forward, when we started it off. And I wrote my first book, 360 Degrees Back to Life. And I loved that book. I loved that writing.
Yeah. So and you found your purpose.
I found my purpose.
God took something away from you, but gave you something
correct
else beautifully.
And that book was endorsed by Gloria Steinem. And I just walked up to her and I said, ma'am, I'd like to use these pictures in a book. And they said yes. She's the world's iconic feminist. So somewhere your stars have to match. And, you are sort of caught in this cycle, and then you end up meeting because you're doing good. Maybe the way that we both met,
yes. Absolutely. It was serendipity at its best.
Absolutely. And after that, I just sort of, traveled along with my divorce as, one little suitcase. This is me and this is my divorce, but instead of it being a baggage, I started opening it and putting in fabulous things in it. I traveled, I worked, I was featured in BBC, Invisible Women of India, which was a broadcast to about, I think, millions of people worldwide on International Women's Day. So all this, and I started writing, which I thought was really,
cathartic.
And it was fabulous.
It gives other people the courage to be able to get inspired from the stories that you share, the experiences you share.
So that was how I ended up. And a lot of times, a lot of my colleagues also say that, what do you talk to your clients? How come you have these hours-long conversations with your clients? I said, because I want to know. I don't only...
By the way, homeopaths do that.
Yeah.
If you go to a homeopath, he'll ask you, so how's your marriage?
Correct.
What did you eat?
Correct.
So what is your emotion?
Correct.
What's happening in your personal life? What's happening in your professional life?
Correct.
What is the feelings you feel?
Correct.
How do you think about your parents?
Absolutely.
How do you think about your children? So the homeopath essentially gets into your full
correct
personality, your feelings, in some way subconscious.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I like to know, and a lot of times, that saves you in an argument in court. I'd like to give an illustration. This guy, he kept on telling me that no, my wife got everything written down from me, and she's put everything in her name, and she had got an apology letter written from me to her. And I was just saying, and I keep absorbing facts. I hardly ever forget a fact. And whilst arguing in court for him, suddenly I found that piece of paper in which the wife had got the apology and all the assets transferred in her name on a stamp paper. So he had just mentioned that to me in a consultation. I used that and I ended up actually winning a very important part of the case for him. So, I like to know.
That conversation comes in.
Conversation.
Trust me, I know exactly.
Exactly.
My work also, I'm casually talking with people for 1 hour, 2 hour, and there is some value to it.
Correct.
Later.
Correct.
And that time I'm doing it without getting.
Absolutely.
But what you put in. Yeah. Now let me ask you, why are so many divorces happening? What's going wrong? I mean, we are still the country with the lowest divorce rate.
That's
but
correct.
If you look at absolute numbers, given our population and given our background as a country which is family oriented, there is a taboo to divorce.
Saat janam ka saath.
Saat janam.
I'm smiling because sometimes, like sometimes marriages don't even last that 7 months.
So, itne divorce kyun hai? What's, because I'm sure, by the way, they say marriages are made in heaven, divorces are made in Pali Hill. That's
Correct.
what your next book is about.
Correct.
But itne divorce kyun hai?
I think there are 4-5 reasons. Okay. I think people see what I call as a bigger, better deal or a bigger, better life beyond this life that they are living. They feel that if they cross over, the grass is greener, and now they have a way of crossing over to the other side. And they want to go ahead and say, we'll take our chances. And social media makes it seem so simple. Social media always makes you feel everything is doable. So you can easily cross over.
Yeah, you announce it on social media, done with it.
Yeah. So thirdly, I think even financially, both men and women, both are now financially independent. And they don't want to put up with each other's nonsense. Men never wanted to. Women, in that sense of the word, women would tolerate more because that's just the way we are made.
Sure.
We
saw parents like that.
Absolutely, and fourthly, I think even with the media, now divorce is quite a part of our usual vocabulary. We never heard our parents saying, oh, I'm unhappy, I'm going to divorce you. So now it is that I'm unhappy, I have an option, I'm going to avail it. And I also think this whole generation who are in their 20s and 30s, you come in with this whole large expectation, large lives coming into this married life. And,
so marriage become a deal?
In a way, it has become a deal. And also, it has become that the couple, they keep on saying that, we are spending a lot of quality time together. I don't think they're spending quality time together. It's all about doing things. It's all about the bucket list. Checking, all this is fine. I mean, sometimes I'd gone for a marriage in December, and everybody said you have to come and rehearse and do this Bollywood style dance, and I said, no, I'm not doing all of that, but I will definitely come. January I get a call. I said, abhi to main December mein शादी होके आई हूँ. So fortunately it was for someone else, because I thought, oh my God, they rehearsed about 18 months for that. They did all this destination planning, and I said, that means 18 months का ऐसा तो नहीं कि एक month में marriage is over. You see, so there is no also freshness left to the marriage, and I feel really sad about that. You've come in and it's like, you don't have time, you don't get to know that person as intimately as you should, because your entire sort of infrastructure is coming into this marriage. In earlier days, they used to say women should and men should also, sort of leave their other lives behind and then be united in this marriage. And there must be some truth.
Career is more important. This is more important.
No, this and that is very important.
Yeah.
Career, theek hai. I'm okay with career, but that this and that and that and this,
In comparison, बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया.
बहुत ज़्यादा. What we call as the in legal language, there's a term. It's called whataboutery. So the whatabouteries have become
and what
too
are those
important.
whatabouteries? Like, give us one or two examples.
Like your vacations abroad.
So you're saying vacation नहीं लेके गए?
Vacation नहीं लेके गया. We go for our honeymoon. Honeymoon got delayed. I had someone who had come to me and she went on and on and on, and and she said, "Ma'am, I need to file for divorce." And I checked. I said, "You've just been married for 2 months." And she was an air hostess, and she said, we never went on a honeymoon. And for me, that was a deal breaker. I said, but you're flying constantly. You both, he was a purser also, you both could have just taken 2 days off. And I mean, 2 years you all have been together, 2 months you've been married, and you didn't go for a honeymoon, and that is a deal breaker. And with this entire thing of this marriage, I thought they've been married for like 15 years or something, but just 2 months. So, I just feel all these additional things because
And
maybe
what about
because
parents? Traditionally, the reasons were parents' interference.
parents still interfere.
In the
Let me
girl's
tell
life.
you that.
Even in the boy's life.
Even in the boy's life.
Their mama's boys,
Correct. And also the parents are every daughter-in-law feels that the mother-in-law interferes. That has not changed. Let me tell you, that has not changed in India. That hasn't changed worldwide. Even if you're living miles away, even if you're in India and Iceland, you'll feel that the mother-in-law is interfering, or the mother-in-law feel that the daughter-in-law is not doing enough. But I feel that there is a change in that also. So I think, we talk about women being feminists, but I think we should also raise men who are comfortable with feminists.
Yeah.
So everything has changed. There are no MTNL landlines anymore. We are using mobiles. And now I think we'll also get to just using chips. So why aren't we sort of bringing correct and bringing that in our marriages?
Upgrading our expectations
Exactly.
from ourselves,
correct.
From our partner.
Correct. And why aren't we bringing that in our marriages?
Let me ask you, like, my daughter's about to be 22, my son is about to be 18. At some stage, so they will both get married. What should parents of young children do while they're getting their children married? Of course, the choice may be the girls, the boys. But what can parents do to not get into the way of their children?
I think you should let them live their life with their own choices, because when they are their own mistakes, they don't feel so bad. And then they are ready to accept it and move away from those, or alter those, or transform those. That is one thing. Secondly, this whole thing of, this is how it used to be. There is now nothing as this is how it used to be. See our career choices, see the way the world is moving. See, you have beach weddings, you have destination weddings, you have registrar marriages. Mandir weddings were always there.
In the sense, these days,
correct.
Destination weddings.
So that sort of a thing. So I think let them be. Secondly, always have that assurance given to them that, look, we are there for you, but work it out your own way. And thirdly, don't listen to every whinge and complain and this thing. That's life.
Same baat.
So, ye thoda sa karenge.
If you focus on the joys, they grow. If you focus on small irritations.
I've got someone whose daughter is from IIM Ahmedabad, and when she got married, the husband's mother said, no, but when you go for work in the morning, you have to go in the kitchen and cook. And she said, I can do that on weekends. But in the morning when I'm leaving, I'm in this high pressure venture capitalist fund. And, we may hit a huge valuation. And my husband is okay with it, which is the son. And, the mother-in-law just kept on pressurizing. Eventually, the son had to tell her
And
that.
the mothers make the sons feel very guilty for
Yeah.
that. I can tell you, my mother's in heaven. I love my mother. My mother loves me. But I know in my initial years, my wife is lovely, but, as you say, mother-in-law.
Correct.
The expectations are never met fully.
Correct.
And that puts the pressure on the son also.
Correct.
That aspect, because, you don't have to choose between a mother and wife.
Never.
Mother is mother, wife is wife.
Never, so.
You're so right.
And I also feel that,
By the way, I don't know how to cook, but my wife still accepts me.
I wish those gender changes also.
Rice for my wife. About 15 years, 16
What
years
did you
back,
cook?
Chicken, and I was calling my mother to ask कैसे बनाना. My mother was a great cook. And तभी मेरी माँ ने पूछा, मेरे लिए तो तूने कभी बनाया नहीं.
Too good, too good.
So this is a real thing. I think I cooked rice in my whole 25 years. That was 15 years back. And I've gone through all seasons. But now coming back, is there a formula? Because, see, you've seen couples from outside. They come to you when they're most vulnerable. Possibly they're also very honest about what their strengths and weaknesses, what are the mistakes they committed. What is a formula for a good marriage life?
I think, tolerance. Okay, that is number one.
Perfect.
No one's perfect. Stop thinking that marriages have to be insta-worthy. Every moment in your marriage doesn't need to be documented, and perfection, as we know, doesn't exist. That's why they say, na, Chand mein bhi daag hai. But still we say the moon is the prettiest. All the paeans of praise are for the moon. And I feel, don't expect everything from the same guy. And for the guys, I say, don't expect everything from the same girl. The women also expect that guy. I had a marriage which had come to me, and she said, no, I cheated on him because he didn't have time to listen to me. I said, yeah, well, he's worth close to 8,000 crores. Maybe he was out there earning that money to help to fund your lifestyle. No, but his friend was listening to me. Yeah, because his friend was doing no work and working in his company. You see, so this whole thing that he should spend 3 hours listening to me on the phone, I'm sorry, no one has time to do that. I don't have time to do that. That is A. And for the men, it flips. It's okay if your wife's chapatis look like maps of various countries. At least she's,
broccoli खानी चाहिए.
broccoli खानी चाहिए. Absolutely.
चपाती तो वो वाले लोग खाते हैं. चपाती तो खानी नहीं चाहिए.
But there's this whole pressure. And like you beautifully said, I'm taking your word away, that, mother is mother, wife is wife. Move in times with the wife also. And also, I must say this, I think finances should be separate. You all will live.
My finances are all with my wife.
But now it's too late to change that.
No, I have clarity. I'm very happy with it.
So
I'm very happy with it.
You're very happy with it.
I mean, it's like I'm very happy with it. So in my case, I have never considered that.
But see, you've also been married for 25 years. This is also for the younger people.
First 10, 12 years, I wouldn't do that. I made all the mistakes that a young man makes. Listening to my mother, not giving my wife enough credit, not understanding her issues, and then, not being an absorber. My wife has told me something, gone and told my mother.
Correct.
My mother has told me something, gone and told it to my wife. Just listening and not reacting to it is a big deal,
Yeah.
And not making issue out of small things, even if you're not like.
Correct.
I think I'm much better today, than I was. Because it is, it takes time.
It takes time. But, at least now information is available. It's out there. People are talking about it.
Then, let me ask you, since you talked about information, you talked about counseling, you did that. In how many percentage cases where people have come with Karna divorce, for counseling, and they've said, okay, we've reconciled.
Rarest of rare.
Rarest of rare.
Yeah, but it has happened less than 3%. But 2 matters had come to me, and I felt that there is hope. So I sent them for counseling. More than that, I just backed off And I said, let's not send out any legal notices now. And then the girl spoke up and she said, I'm quite happy with him, but my parents keep on saying that, he should buy more designer clothes for me. I don't really care about designer clothes. And then the boy also, he told the girl, he had another lawyer, he told the girl that, tell ma'am that, I'm also happy with you. Whatever you want, I'm ready to give you. But a lot of pressure from my mother, कि अभी नहीं दो, बाद में दो. So I actually told them that,
and
let's
can
just.
I tell you another thing? This money thing. Sometimes when you give money to your wife, it's never about the money. It's about the feeling.
It's about the feeling.
So I said, क्या wife spends it for you, for the children.
Correct.
Wife थोड़ा कुछ लेके जा रही है.
Correct.
So it's the feeling that comes with
Absolutely.
it. Of having not done it and having done it.
Correct.
It's about the feeling.
Correct. And I just find, Indian wives are pretty good.
Yeah,
they the first thought is बच्चे, husband, घर, then we'll think about other things. And thoda, yeah, of course, I should come across well in society and all of that, because after all, and also we are a society which is, we thrive on bonds. So not only negative, रिश्ते निभाने ही है.
Whatever it takes, time.
So that sort of a thing. So I just feel that have a little more faith. But yes, I also feel, on the other hand, that your finances, in that sense, should be separate. And एक और कोई common fund कर लो. But अपने थोड़े से finances अलग रखो, especially for people who are getting married in their 20s, because earlier, in-laws used to control the money, or our grandparents used to control the money, maybe for a larger good. Look at it like that. Don't think that I'm hiding it from my wife, or the wife shouldn't think I'm hiding it from my husband. I've got a wife who's come to me who's maybe 1,000,000 times richer than her husband. So just go easy on the money, because money causes a lot of problems. So many of these, I won't take the names, but so many of these large cases which are now being mediated upon by the Supreme Court. What is it? It's all money.
And then बंदा मर जाता है, तो उसकी वोटी दे माल लड़ती रहती है, किन्नेदारी हो रही है. The boy dies, the husband has died.
Correct.
A wealthy guy, and his mother and wife are fighting. In some cases, he has an ex-wife and a wife, and they are fighting.
Correct.
It's
grandchildren.
Grandchildren, it's quite complicated. But let me come to you.
Please.
The cost of divorce. There's a financial cost, there's a time and energy cost, and there is an emotional cost.
Correct.
It's huge, right?
Huge.
Today, what is the average tenure or time period in which a divorce gets finalized?
See, on an average, let us say, when I sit in for a divorce, I always insist on pre-litigation. I do a lot of pre-litigation work.
करना ही नहीं पड़े. पहले ही solve हो जाए.
पहले ही solve हो जाए.
So we had mutual understanding से divorce हो जाए.
Correct.
मतलब legal से now वैसे ही हो जाए.
Correct. So between 6 months to 1 year, sometimes that takes. Do I feel it's worth it? I feel it is 100% worth it.
No, of course, because I understand law a little bit now.
Correct.
We brought in arbitration.
Correct.
The pendency, which is
Correct.
5 crore cases, should come down.
Correct.
Cost should come down.
Correct.
It didn't work, so we brought in arbitration because
Correct.
the cost of mediation hasn't really come down.
Correct.
And the time period of mediation has also become longer, so it hasn't solved the two objectives of mediation. So
Correct.
Clearly, solving it ultimately तो बैठ के ही solve करना पड़ेगा.
Absolutely.
कुछ judgment होगा, उसके बाद उसकी implementation भी बैठ के ही solve करना पड़ेगा.
Absolutely. How beautifully put. You are the first person who has said this to me about the judgment, because that's what I keep on saying. I said, resolve it earlier. And, your divorce lawyers spend a lot of time in getting a good lawyer who will match your thinking, because your lawyers are your sarthis along with you.
And, there has to be some compassion.
That's what I'm saying.
I see you as a person who will feel for the other person.
Absolutely.
It is not just a tick mark.
Not at all. I say it openly. That's what when I mentioned, my colleagues say, what do you talk to your clients? No, I talk to them. Sometimes I've gone for clients' second marriages. I went for one client, I went for her grandson's mundan. Imagine that. People said, "Oh my God, Vandy, you've got this life moving around and keeping up with clients even after that." He said, "Because I never thought of them only as clients, no. I didn't think that they were case numbers. Otherwise, if I wasn't compassionate or empathetic, why will someone call me for their grandson's mundan? It's not possible."
I want a little, I feel that energy from you. But these too many great divorces happening. Wo kyun ho rahe hain?
First, I want to come to your earlier question, which is the cost. So your pre-litigation.
So before you get on to a divorce, there is an emotional cost, there is a time and energy cost, and there is a financial cost.
There's a financial cost. So your pre-litigation, usually it takes 6 months to 1 year. And I think at the end of that 1 year, you usually are able to convert it into a divorce by mutual consent. So take about 18 months. Sometimes you may even file to get the cooling off period waived off. But I'm not coming to exceptions. I'm going with a general thumb rule. So I think in that 18 months also you have this roller coaster of emotions.
Mind we change karta hai.
Mind we change karta hai. Te tusi, you're sending the petition. Suddenly you're saying,
sometimes you feel that you can get this done, then you realize you can't get this
can't
done.
get that done.
Then it also depends on how the other side responds.
Also your emotions. You see, when there are children involved, suddenly you're seeing this petition was sent when my child was 2 years old. Today my child is 4 years old. My 2 years have gone. The father feels
very tough on children.
Very tough. The father feels, I haven't met the child for 2 years. I've missed out on the best years. The mother feels, I wish the child had more resources because the father, I wish he had sent more money. So when you're going through a petition, it's real. For me, it is a breathing object. So imagine someone who is going through a divorce, what they feel. So they're going on revisiting it. And unfortunately, they're only revisiting the bad parts of the marriage. So that's why I advise people, come in with, even if you have to let go of money, let it go for some time. If it is meant to be, it will come to you. Because each single day that you waste, you are reliving that horror.
And the emotional cost.
And the emotional cost. Financial cost, of course, if you come to me, it is heavy. So, but then your benefit is also heavy. So it is always like that, like they say. I used to do a lot of pro bono matters, and even now I do them. But there was a really good case in court, and the wife was an auto rickshaw guy's wife, auto rickshaw driver की wife थी. मैंने argue किया interim maintenance के लिए.
Rich लोगों का free में किया.
Not really. Not really.
Now let me ask you, what are the top 3 reasons for divorce?
Top 3 reasons: infidelity, financial.
From the wife or the son or boy? From the
can be both, but usually it's the men.
More men.
More men.
You have to put a percentage?
70-30. Wives may be emotional infidelity. Like you confide into your, you'll meet your salon hairdresser even outside to chit chat and say, this is what is happening. Or your physical. आप तो जाते ही नहीं, आप तो lucky हो, so and
so first is infidelity.
Infidelity. Then a physical trainer, the wives always, they get, that, okay, he understands me, he gets me. So that emotional infidelity from the wives can be higher. Okay. Second is finances. I think finances, they really need to be addressed as a separate chapter. When you're sitting down to organize a marriage, you're discussing destination, this. एक थोड़ा सा finances भी discuss करें. That would be fabulous.
And what about the in-laws? I thought that would be
I'm coming to that. So I'm going to go beyond 3 reasons, okay? Then thirdly is the mother-in-law factor.
Mother-in-law, both sides. More on the boys' side?
More on the boys' side.
Expectation वहाँ जाता.
बहुत ज़्यादा. It's, and I just say that to deal with that,
ब्राइड को मदर इन लॉ का इंटरव्यू करना चाहिए.
इंटरव्यू कर लो और थोड़ा सा दोस्ती कर लो. You know, because ultimately, if you love the guy and she also loves the guy, mother also loves the guy, you also love the guy as a wife.
We were talking about the top reasons for divorce.
Correct.
And you said the expectations of the mother-in-law.
Expectation, especially from the boy's side. You see, those expectations.
और top expectation क्या होती है? कि खाना बनाओ आज के जमाने में भी.
आज के भी जमाने में
स्विगी है आजकल.
You know, स्विगी है, सब लोग हैं. You know, हाँ, but the main thing is the खाना. The house is not kept the way it should be kept.
और टाइम नहीं लगाती हमारे साथ.
हाँ, वो टाइम का तो बाद की बात है. But these two things ना.
And are you talking of middle class people or are you talking of rich people?
Even rich people.
So it's the same issues with rich people.
Same issues. That food is a big burning issue.
वो खाना नहीं बनाती
कि अच्छा
इतने सारे खानसामे हैं वो कितने हैं उनकी जॉब चली जाएगी अगर बीवी खाना बनाने लगेगी.
But no, there's still that expectation.
See, once in a while is okay to make feel special, but you know
you can
modern
also
women
outsource.
are not. Yes,
you can outsource. You can supervise. You can outsource, but.
And what are the
expectations?
Okay, let me ask you another question. The divorces initiated, if the 10 divorces, how many are initiated by women? How many initiated by men?
50-50.
अब 50-50 हो गया.
50-50.
पिछले 10 साल में क्या change हुआ? What is the change that has happened?
See, earlier I would say about 15 years ago. मैं 15 years का बताती हूँ आपको data. Earlier it was men. Okay, I think it was 90-10. And now over a period of time, I've seen it go down to 80-20. 70-30, now it is 50-50. And women may not actually file, but they're like, I'm done.
Like, emotionally they're done. Mentally they're done. We're done with this.
You know, like what's called even a silent divorce. It's kind of like a silent divorce. You just moved on. Not necessarily that you're having an affair.
It's but just like, that your needs are not being met, emotional needs.
And you're like, I'm just done now.
Okay, can I ask you this?
Please.
Sorry, I keep jumping, but that's how I am. How much is it about physical intimacy or, let me say sex, is that a big reason in some cases?
It is, but they don't speak about it. That is the beauty of India. We are a country of almost 1.4 billion population.
हाँ, मतलब बच्चे ही पैदा करते हैं.
हाँ.
By the way, India में porn भी बहुत consume होता है.
बहुत ज़्यादा.
अगर data
but we never speak about it. So it is a reason. I do believe physical intimacy is extremely important. But it is never spoken about that openly. So they say, no ma'am, he doesn't listen to me. He doesn't do this. Financially I'm tight. He doesn't bond with the children. And ma'am, physically, then thodi volume look. Physically also, अच्छा नहीं चल रहा. 2-3 साल. You know what I'm saying? Although in the West, it would have been one of the top 2-3 reasons. But in India,
it may be, but mentally we don't see it as like that.
Mentally
and definitely we don't articulate.
We don't.
We don't articulate.
We don't articulate it. We don't speak about it.
And what are women's top reasons to take divorce?
Well, infidelity is not one of them. They just feel that no, he will come back.
And they're okay to accept that?
Yes. I see that a number of times.
And why is that? जो एक बारी cheat करेगा वो बारी-बारी करेगा.
But they don't feel that way. They feel women always have this thing that he's a bad boy. I'll tame him. Because of me, he'll become fine. But I want to tell women out there, they never change. You cannot tame someone. They have to feel that, I'm ready.
Any change has to come from within.
Absolutely.
You want to quit smoking, you want to quit drinking, whatever bad habit.
It has adultery, that also has to
comes from within.
Absolutely.
And it also comes from trade-off. If there is a good life and that gets jeopardized by adultery, then you will give it up. That's what I feel, right?
You could, but I think it has to come from within.
Oh, that 100%.
So
what are the women's top reasons?
Women's top reason is definitely, I feel, mother-in-law is one of the reasons. All the time, I hear it in every conversation. They always say, if my mother-in-law wasn't there, maybe my marriage wouldn't have broken up. There is not so much of a pressure on the father-in-law, or focus on the father-in-law.
But the father-in-laws also go with the mother.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But they don't say that much against this thing, which is quite shocking. They could have also say that I wish my father-in-law sided with me. No, it is always the mother-in-law. Okay. Second reason is financial reason.
And build on the financial reason. It is expectation of certain lifestyle or the husband giving
Expectation
money.
of certain lifestyle based on the finances that they have. You see, one is where you're not doing well at all. Okay, so
That also puts pressure.
that also put pressure. But one is where you're doing well, but no money is being given. This whole thing of the man is controlling all the money, and there is no money. Remember, that's why I said
Also
have a
men feel
common
that if
fund.
they control the money, they'll control their
But have
marriage.
a common fund, na?
But
Don't put
men
all
also
your.
feel that if they control the money, they'll control the marriage.
Yeah, but the thing is that they actually end up jeopardizing the marriage.
So beautiful.
So I just feel don't do that. Have a common fund.
First is mother-in-law, second is finances.
And the third is when you don't pay enough attention to the children. You see, now children have become the focal point of our lives. I know marriages. This doctor that I know, and she said that Vandy, I think it's done. So I said, "No, yeah, don't do like this." She said, then we all got together, and she said, but I have to bear in mind that he is very good with the child." And then we started saying, then
So
what
if
do
you're
you
good
think?
with the child,
Yes.
that can bring
And she says,
significant positives to your marriage.
absolutely. And she said, so I can focus on my career. She's doing much better than the guy. Okay. And she said, so I can focus on the career. At least I can leave the child with him. Suppose I had to leave it with a stranger or with a helper. So she says, so she actually
So where
backed
in
down.
marriages the husband is not compassionate to children or spends enough time, attention, or is not sensitive to the children,
Correct.
that marriages also are in danger.
Absolutely. Because this girl, now their marriage, they never broke up. Today the child is
You're
21.
saying she thought of her husband as a better babysitter than
Could
a
be.
professional babysitter.
Could be. Reliable, definitely.
Reliable babysitter, the husband.
Yeah,
The next best novel by Vandana Shah. But let me ask you another. Have you seen children becoming a glue to bring husband wife together, or it hasn't happened because they're too young?
No, they do want that the parents should stay together. But now even the reverse is happening, where someone had called me up and she said, I want my parents not to be together.
जो इतना लड़ते हैं.
Yeah.
अच्छा, tell me situations where husband wife have moved, but they're husband wife in every aspect.
Absolutely.
Because they just wanted some space, right? And have they come back together? ऐसा भी होता है.
In India, yes. We do a lot for society. We do a lot for our children. We do a lot. We don't realize we are such a socially, bound society.
There are so many relationships that are important to us.
Yeah. So many marriages I know that, they are living in separate rooms. They are living this thing. They're just going through the motions of marriage. There's no hate. There's nothing. It's just dead. But they're still not divorced. And they say, for the children, acha chalo, now when the children will grow up, when they'll finish school, then it's college. Now university ja rahe hain. So it is that sort of a thing. So it never ever, sometimes they just don't file for divorce. I know a marriage counselor who did that. She didn't live with her husband for the longest of time. For almost 30 years. But she never divorced. And I think there is this fear because divorce is final. There is no going back from a divorce. And I mean, people may do it because of the stigma. People may do it because they say, okay, there is hope, or sometimes you just want to be very European in your thinking and say, okay, I'll just leave it loose because not every beginning has to have a circular ending. It can just be a tangential ending.
Now, let me ask you, you went through a divorce.
Correct.
You are now a top divorce lawyer.
Correct.
How do you rate the divorce lawyers that you encountered then, without taking a name? I don't even know who.
I never ever take their names. So I would say, like, one of the lawyers, because of whom. So I always, at that time, of course, you're angry, but when you look in retrospect, I feel, oh, that lawyer, because of that lawyer, I actually, if she wasn't so bad, today I wouldn't have become a divorce lawyer, you know. And I look at the other lawyer and I say, oh my God, if she didn't have such contempt for me, I would probably.
And they know you and know your success now.
Of course, they do. A lot of them appear opposite me in family court, and I'm winning the cases opposite them. So,
It's a good feeling.
it's a damn good feeling.
Karma.
Karma, and karma never forgets.
Yes.
It just waits to send you the bill.
Yes.
So
Let me ask you.
I just want to say, I wish. See, it's not only about the law. You've been using the term empathy, and I feel for a divorce lawyer to have empathy is one of the primary.
Even for the person whom you're not representing.
Yeah. Like a lot of women come to me and they say, we don't want to give access. I said, no, yaar. Access you have to give. If you feel that the child is unsafe with the father, give access in the court complex. But give access. Because you both may cease to be husband and wife, but you both never cease to be parents. So do that. So I feel empathy is extremely important, and empathy helps you to create a situation
And a solution.
and which is a win-win for everyone. And I think it is one of the biggest reasons of today where I am. I always feel that no, अच्छा चलो अगर इतना थोड़ा सा बोल के I can help out a client और उसका mental मैं stress कम कर सकती हूँ, why not?
अच्छा मेरे को एक बात बताओ, ये तो हम डिवोर्स की जनरली बात कर रहे हैं, वी टॉकिंग इन जनरल. नाउ लेट्स कम टू रियली बिग रिच फैट divorces, celebrity divorces. Give me without there's client confidentiality, not, but give us some interesting anecdotes which came as a surprise or they were amusing while these divorces were happening. So, what are the considerations that celebrities go through, which normal people don't go through?
See, for in a celebrity divorce, I think one of the biggest things that happens is
Confidentiality.
Confidentiality. Of course, that is for everyone.
But
Okay, but also I find that more than anything, what they are looking at is, I mean, the irony is you want to bond with each other. You want to spend time with each other, but you're unable to do so because you are surrounded by this battery of people who are your helpers or people who manage your lives for you. I mean, I just found it really amusing in this couple. I just said, but if you wanted him to come out with you, why didn't you just pick up the phone and tell him that you're on the WhatsApp all the time? No, but that is my secretary's job. But how can that help your marriage?
the secretary is not married to the
Exactly, So I feel one of the biggest, I just found it really, really
guy.
weird and very difficult to absorb at that point of time. And secondly, is I also find that
Secretary is for outside people, it's not for your husband.
not for your husband. Why do you need the secretary to coordinate your schedules? So I think that is one of the things. Second is these small things become absolutely blown out of proportion. Let us assume, we go out for dinner or we go out for a cup of coffee. There is no camera on us all the time. But if one mistake outside and it gets blown out of proportion, and that kind of comes as a surprise for one of the reasons of the marriage breaking up, that when we went out and then you behaved like this and then the press reported it, and now because of that I have to answer ABC. I just thought that was terrible. And
the marriage is a bond between two people.
Absolutely.
It's their will to be with each other and to understand the positives in each other.
Absolutely.
While neglecting the negatives.
Yeah. And also, one of the marriages, the wife actually found out the husband was cheating on her because he was sitting in a hotel lobby and discussing about that with one of his childhood friends, and someone overheard, and then blah 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 blah, it came in the press. And I said, oh my god, now what are the chances of this? But I still found it really weird. The husband thought it's okay to sit in a five star and discuss my love life with my childhood friend, and especially when I'm cheating on the wife. Why would you even do that? So I find
Movie
this
star or sports star?
movie star.
By the way, I'm told that movie stars are unique. They have unique ways of living. They have unique expectations. They have unique ego.
Unique ego, yes. That is true. That is true. And it takes a lot
To be normal.
to be, yeah, because imagine walking down and everybody is ready to do your bidding, not even at the snap of a finger. I mean, that is, I imagine, when I was coming here and you see all the film stars and people just gathered outside their houses and they're clicking pictures of their houses, and I find it really bizarre that it's just a house.
By the way, this is my 20th year of living in this hotel, and I cross a certain
Correct.
people standing there taking. I said, what does it do to their life?
Correct. By clicking a
I think,
picture of
I
that
mean, I
house.
can understand. Uh,
If he's there
he's there, you take
or
a photo,
she's
he's there.
there.
But I don't understand. I swear I have thought about this 10 times. And the star is great. I mean, you know, maybe I'm in the media because I meet them regularly. I say maybe I'm not, maybe. But I've felt the same thing all the time.
Because I just
In fact, I tell people, यार फोटो क्यों लेते हो यार? मतलब आगे बढ़ो, कुछ तुम्हारी लाइफ में फर्क पड़ता है तो फोटो लो.
correct. And वो भी सिर्फ घर की, वो तो दीवारें ही है.
So that builds their ego.
That builds the ego.
But can I tell you? I mean, I know very big guys. Once they reach home or with their wife, they are their husband. They're not the superstar. They're outside.
Yeah, but
in the entrepreneurs, I'm talking.
On the entrepreneurs, but that hardly ever happens in a lot of celebrities. It's very difficult, and I hear about it again and again and again and again. I mean, this marriage of this couple where the wife has certain thinking or thought processes in life which don't match with the husband. They're divorced now, but it's like she can't get over her film persona that has come into the bedroom, and that has pervaded every aspect of your life. You can't do that. And of course, the previous generation of superstars.
Do you have repeat clients, people who get divorced, get married again, want a divorce?
I've got one.
You
client
discount
like
देते हो? Again, I see there are people I know, and God bless them, but they're looking for a perfect partner. तीसरी बार शादी कर रहे हैं, चौथी बार शादी कर रहे हैं.
Perfection doesn't exist. You need to, sort of not expect. I feel, don't expect everything from one person.
Sometimes they go to too many people. You know what I mean?
But but you know how it is. Just your major things you should expect from one person.
Sure.
I'm not saying please outsource your romance.
Yes.
But you can definitely outsource your cooking. You can definitely outsource some gift wrapping. You can't expect your wife to do all of that, and you can't expect your husband to sit and listen to you for three hours every single day. Maybe he doesn't have it in him, or maybe his mind is too preoccupied with work. Just don't do that. And you will, and can't you have friends outside? Why do you expect this one thing from this one person? I think that is the burden of expectation in a marriage.
Yeah. And also, too many women want to be independent. No strings. Don't ask me any questions. No accountability.
That is now, but that is, I talk about women or men?
Women.
I think men were always like that. Now, don't ask me anything.
Men were like that. I agree. But these days, women have also become like that.
So, I mean, what's good for the goose is also good for the gander.
I'm just sharing. I'm not saying it's good.
I think that you have to have your internal moral compass.
Absolutely.
Or any compass, you have to set that right. And I think that is important. And you can have, why do marriages subsist? Why do some marriages subsist? Because you just keep, sort of moving according to the way the situation changes. I
And
never
you
use the
accept the
term,
person with all
and
the.
I don't use the term adjust. I hate that term because everybody says, "Yeah, adjust kar lo." Like, what adjust? You know what I'm saying? You can
Accept kar lo is my.
mold yourself.
Yeah, I understand.
And the molding, why I use mold? Because that means that you both are malleable. So you can fit into each other. You're like Lego. Become that Lego rather than looking at two pieces of stone which need to be broken down to fit into each other. Be Lego.
अब आपकी एक नई बुक आ रही है एक्स फाइल्स थी ये सेकंड बुक थी इट्स कॉल्ड पीएचडी
PhD.
It's called.
Finally, I've got a PhD.
Yes, you got a PhD. I normally say I have a PhD, permanent head damage. But you have a PhD of a different kind. Guess what's PhD? It's Pali Hill divorces.
Pali Hill divorces.
वो दिल्ली में होते तो golfing divorces ना.
Golfing divorces.
GLD. But why Pali Hill? Why not Sobo divorces?
Sobo is passe now.
Sobo is passe now, says Vandana Shah.
Yeah.
Pali Hill.
Pali Hill is the it place, and that is where all the action is. And you have people, who are. I remember I got an alimony for someone, and she was crying. She said the alimony is less. So why is the alimony less? She said, "इतना तो मुझे interior decorator को देना पड़ेगा."
Wow.
So I just thought.
Thank God she didn't say I just bought a villa in Monaco.
No, she didn't say that, but she said this, and I said, "But you get another interior decorator." No, this is the interior decorator. So I have to go with this one. I just thought, oh my God, your marriage is imploding. I'm standing here in family court where people are not even sometimes getting 500 rupees a month. And she said, I'm feeling really distressed. I'm going to go and tell the judge. I said, please do not do that. You've got crores in a settlement, and there are all these people who are getting nothing because there's another matter at that time where the wife was getting some 2,000 rupees a month. Said, please don't do that. And they feel this is real. You see, you feel that this pain is real. And I think that is what is very, very amusing. It's very.
So what's in the book?
It's like a satire on rich divorces. And I've got these beautiful characters like Chanel Rambagh.
Chanel Rambagh.
Yeah.
We try to figure out who that is.
And she's got these children. One is called Prada. With a name like Chanel, you'll obviously name your child Prada. And you have this Gujarati guy who I really love. I mean, I think his character is really fleshed out. He's called Garib Das. But he's a billionaire. He's got $99 billion. But you always have the Gujaratis, they have these sad names and sad this thing, and then suddenly they're the ones with all the money because they're the ones doing the grind. And you have characters like Pinka and
Pinka Punjabi है?
Pinka Singh.
Pinka Singh.
Yes.
दिल्ली तो है?
नहीं, Haryana.
हरियाणा तो हैगा.
And you have the protagonist Cleopatra Mystery, who's the lawyer.
I think we'll do a quiz after the book comes out.
Absolutely.
Match them.
I love that. So, it goes through this whole journey of these large divorces, what's going on in them. But what is beautiful is at the end of each of the chapters, I've also spoken about the legal aspect. So, in a way, if you are going through a divorce and you go through this, these appendices, you come to know that, oh, this is an interim maintenance. Oh, this is for child access. Oh, this is what is legal. Oh, this is what is my fundamental right. So I'm really looking forward to it. Penguin is publishing it. I'm really happy. Gaurav of Penguin, Gaurav who's heading it, he's been really supportive. I'm happy about that. And I'm looking forward to it either in June or in August. Let us see. August is your birthday month, isn't it?
Mine, my daughters.
Yeah, yours and your daughters. So
yes, but I look forward to your book. I love reading books. And
thank you.
Now let me ask you, you achieved so much, God gave you a purpose. God gave you a higher calling, if I may call it. And while it may be a profession, you're also doing it from whatever little I understand or talking to you, seeing your work, is for the social impact.
Absolutely.
You want to give back, you want to contribute. It's not just a job, right? You've written books.
Yes.
Your third book is coming out.
That's right.
Your work has impact. It has acknowledgement. You made a name for yourself.
Thank you.
When I first met you, my friend who was said she's a big lawyer. Right, the moment you told
Thank you.
who you are, and so there's a recall of your name.
Thank you.
Whole key karna. Is there a bucket list? Is there something left for Vandana Shah to do?
Absolutely. I just feel that I think the journey is ongoing, you know,
Always.
and I, of course, want to continue writing. I want to continue with my law. But somewhere I'd like to work harder towards getting the stigma around divorce removed. Now, whether that is through films or that is through short films or a talk show, where women or men who have had a second chance, like I call them as born again singles, and then you get back into this thing, how have they changed their lives and how they can be motivators for bringing about the change in others' lives, so basically get more into the media space and look at those aspects. And I think a little bit of fashion. People
You
like,
started as a model.
yeah, so people.
By the way, advertising which ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ
I
ਪਤਾ
was doing creative.
And where was this?
McCann Erickson.
You were at McCann Erickson.
Yeah,
Oh,
can you imagine?
can you imagine? I worked at J. Walter Thompson for a little while.
Wow.
And, apart from Businessworld,
Yes.
I've been lucky enough to set up India's #1 advertising
I know.
magazine. So it's great. But आपकी अगर life पे picture बने, if there was a move to be made on your life.
One second, I'm not yet done with
Okay,
what all
sorry,
I'd
sorry,
like to
sorry.
do. And have this, and have this, and also somewhere in India, be a part of policy making, so that divorce as such is not that negative for people. So whether now that becomes that means getting into the government or getting into as a consultant or being the president of the country, maybe the first divorced woman to be the president of the country. And I think our country is very progressive, and we have never ever shied away from progressive women.
You're putting out a wish in the universe.
I'm putting out a
I
wish.
really believe wishes come true.
Absolutely. That's why I always speak positive. Even if I'm fighting.
I tell my wife also sometimes she joke about me herself.
Huh.
I tell her, Niti, don't joke. Say only positive
Say
things.
only positive things, And even if I am out there in court arguing, I put the arguments in a very positive way. And I always end the arguments by saying, and I hope, although we are arguing this, I hope there is an amicable settlement at the end of this.
I also want to ask you about this aspect. Do you think judges are in tune with what's happening? That not always divorce is a bad thing, not always the man is wrong.
Yes, I think they
has
are.
that sensitization happened?
It could, see, there's always scope for more.
Sure.
But I feel our judgments are really progressive, and I feel that the fact that the Supreme Court says that the children's welfare is supreme. So I feel a lot of times the judgments are more progressive than society. There have been judgments where women should get money, but there have also been judgments where they have said that it is not imperative to attach the man's surname next to yours. Now you see, we are ahead of society in that. I mean, I as you know, I love law. And I have a deep faith and a deep respect for our judiciary. I say it on a number of platforms. For me, a judiciary is a living, breathing object in which I have to bring about changes through my work, and I have brought about changes. So for me, judiciary is all encompassing, and it changes people's lives for the positive.
Sure, absolutely. And I've seen in my interaction with you and reading your book and talking to you that you do genuinely express gratitude, right? I see
Yes.
in the book you talk about Shobha Day.
Yes.
You talk about Miss Sardesai.
That's right. Sonal Mansingh, ma'am.
Yes. So
Rafael Nadal, the great love of my life.
yes,
You
oh,
know who I always say I dedicate my book to him. I
Rafa.
dedicate my articles to him. My Rafa.
I think Roger Federer is
No, no, no,
way
no. Now
better.
that's a match.
Way better, way
No,
better.
not at all. Not
I
at
think I
all.
agree with you everything, but on this one,
So
both
we'll
agree.
agree to disagree,
No, but
or
both
we'll
agree.
both love him.
You know, to have, I mean, I follow sports, I follow tennis,
Mm.
to have a Roger Federer, a Rafael Nadal, and a
Oh,
Djokovic at the same time playing at
amazing.
the level for the number of years they played is just, it's
I mean,
God's
we
God's blood. I mean,
absolutely.
there's nothing else.
I
I mean,
mean,
I grew up watching Max Verlander, Steven Edberg,
yeah,
Bjorn Borg,
Bjorn Borg, McEnroe.
John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors. You know, these were the cool Swedes, the Steven Edberg,
Yeah,
Max Verlander. And there was another player called Ili Nastase, left-handed.
correct, correct.
Anyway, coming back to, I want to end by
And
asking,
Steffi Graf,
of course, Steffi Graf married Andrea Gassi. You know,
Andrea Gassi.
yeah, Steffi Graf. And there was Gabriela Sabatini.
Oh, I
I still
loved
have
her.
a poster in my
Gabriela Sabatini. Yeah,
college, you know.
yeah.
But more about that later. But coming back to divorce. So you,
We'll do a podcast on that because in tennis, I will match you ball for ball in my knowledge of tennis. I love that sport.
okay, I mean, I'm a quizzer. And I want to take my son to Wimbledon. Never
Oh,
watched
okay,
Wimbledon.
okay.
June is coming. I don't know. Someday I want to take my
July,
son and wife and daughter to Wimbledon. And much more about time. But let me ask you, you know, we pride that India is the country which has the least divorce rates. Our politicians say that in international forums, people, but the marriages aren't working. So will you see the divorce rates going up?
Do I see divorce rates going up? Yes, I see divorce rates going up. And
How many divorces happen in India every year?
there are no actual numbers about it because you see the matters also continue for a long time, so it's very difficult to track. In between there were some numbers, but I believe those have been absolutely off the
And
mark.
you only work in Mumbai, you don't work in Delhi?
No, I work everywhere. I've got associates everywhere in most cities in the country. So there's Mumbai, Delhi, Chandigarh, also Bangalore, Chennai. Bangalore has a lot of fintech divorces.
Fintech. Is there a term like this called fintech divorces? Yes, Bangalore is the
you know,
fintech capital of
fintech.
India.
Yeah, so
So
fintech
Bangalore is
divorces.
fintech divorces.
Fintech divorces.
Yeah, then next book could be
And
about fintech divorces.
how can I tell you what all are my books that I propose to write? But I will continue writing. Chennai, I go to. Chennai has a lot of divorces going on, even currently. A lot of to do with the film industry and politics.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
lots,
one guy was in
lots,
news about him. I hope it's
lots
not
going
about
on.
the new CM of Tamil Nadu. He's a film star and now he's the politician who's become the chief minister.
Who's become the chief minister is doing really well.
Yeah.
So a lot of we are there in most cities, and I have associates, and I go for the arguments. There's in Dubai and UK and US also, in the major cities. But I just love law. Let me tell you that it has changed my life. It has transformed my life. And I, even when I write and I draft my petitions, I look at it like I am writing something fabulous, not that just cut, copy, paste and go on. That's why my petitions, a lot of people copy them. I mean, I've got petitions back which say, "Arey, but these are my words." So it seems the other side must have got a copy and just, change that. But, well, like they say, imitation is the best form of flattery. So I look at it like that. But divorces are here to stay. And I say that they are your, unwanted rishtedars.
So if marriages are made in heaven, where are divorces made? In
In
Pali Hill?
Vandana Shah's
Pali Hill?
office.
Vandana
Vandana
Shah's
Shah's
office.
office.
I thought you'd say Pali Hill, but you know. Now, focusing on one aspect of divorces is
Please.
the prenuptials.
Correct.
And you said that in India, prenuptials are not legally
They are
enforceable.
not, prenuptial agreements are not legally enforceable.
Why do you say that? Can you explain to us?
So, we are actually a society which believes that your marriages are sacred, they are a sacrament, and they are sacrosanct.
And the marriage
this
contract overrides everything else.
No, your marriage cannot be the subject matter of a contract. That's the reason prenuptial agreements
Your marriage cannot be the subject of a contract.
That's correct.
And hence the contract, which is a prenuptial
Yes,
agreement, does not hold
that's
true.
correct. So the Supreme Court says that it is a sacred sacrament, sacrosanct. So hence prenuptials are
So
not.
then, is there a way that they go to abroad and get it registered?
Some people are doing that, but it becomes very difficult to enforce. Let us say you get it done in London, but your properties are in India. Your wife may choose to file here in India, so that anyways is not valid here. So but I think you should have a conversation about money whilst
You've been
getting
saying
married.
that throughout. And what about alimony? The amounts of alimony are growing, but फिर भी वो it's not enough.
It never is.
So it's never about money actually.
It isn't. And this whole thing, which I tell a lot of clients, I said that you have to look at your marriage or court, not that you're going to court to teach the other side a lesson. That is not why you are in this court. You are to get your own form of justice and to move forward in life. It is not your job to teach them a lesson. So alimony also, I advise clients, okay, he's offering you want 10, he's offering you 1, come somewhere middle, close it at 5, because coming to your previous question, your emotional cost of being in a family court is a lot. It can be depressing. It can be it can feel like a noose around your neck. It feels like an albatross which is sinking you down. Why would you want to do that? And you also have, I'm a living example, once you move out of court, you also have your life, which opens up. So why would you want to be in a setup which would only keep on hindering you?
अबे जैसे मैरिजेस होती हैं इतनी डेस्टिनेशन मैरिजेस, तो कोई डेस्टिनेशन डिवोर्स हो सकता है ऐसा कुछ पार्टी डिवोर्स पार्टी? मैं सीरियसली पूछ रहा हूँ.
Divorce party?
हाँ वो होती है.
Divorce parties hoti hai. I was one of the first people in India to have a divorce party.
अच्छा.
Yeah, when I got my divorce in 2010, I had this huge party.
तब मैं आपको जानता नहीं था.
नहीं, आप तो मुझे जानते नहीं थे, तो मैंने जरूर बुलाना था. And where we
मैं वैसे
burnt.
कभी गया भी नहीं किसी पार्टी पे, किसी ने बुलाया नहीं आज.
अब मैं ये नहीं कह सकती, जब मैं करूंगी डिवोर्स अपनी पार्टी तो मैं करूंगी, so but and we burnt those papers of the petition and everything. It was like a freedom. People don't realize the importance of that freedom. You introduce me as giving freedom or having got freedom. My God, it is inexplicable, and it is absolutely priceless.
So does divorce lead to well-being?
I think it does.
So you're a well-being practitioner. You're not a lawyer.
Thank you very much for calling me that.
You're a well-being practitioner. You're
Thank
not
you
a
very
lawyer.
much.
You're a well-being expert. You're not a divorce
I'm
lawyer.
not a divorce lawyer. Thank you. I've heard a lot of things now, and I'm happy I'm being called a well-being practitioner.
Yes.
Because a toxic marriage, I have clients who say that, ma'am, I've got this whole, my entire, I have a client whose entire left side is paralyzed because she says that she was really stressed in her marriage. So you see, a toxic marriage, like any toxic relationship, it can lead to a lot of health problems and health hazards. And you say that, oh my God, I'm so stressed, I'm so stressed, I'm so stressed. So, why would you want to be in a situation which is leading to your downfall? And especially abusive marriages, both for men and women.
So for single independent women, what is the advice you have to offer?
Firstly, before you get married, you must speak to people who are not related to you and go in buffing up your self-esteem. No one talks about that. You see,
very important.
Because if you have a high self-esteem and you're walking into a marriage, even the what I call the chatterati of relatives, they cannot bring you down. And you have to deal with relatives in a marriage. I speak about it in my book.
I can go on talking to Vandana. It's lovely because she's authentic.
Thank
She
you.
speaks from experiences and she also speaks from her heart. Not that she doesn't have a brain. She is India's number one divorce lawyer, a celebrity divorce lawyer. Is the institution of marriage crumbling in India, or is there hope?
No, I think marriage as an institution is here to stay. It's just that it'll have to give a little more space to divorce. So it will be like, as I see it, like this whole thing was marriage, now thodi ji jaga, so divorce is also fitted in. And you'll always have second marriages and you'll have blended families. Those will be the next big thing.
Blended. By the way, I learned this. We do a design conference, pre-loved.
Yeah.
So I think human beings are also pre-loved.
Correct. Like I say, born again singles.
Yes,
you
a
know
pre-loved is better.
Pre-loved,
Born
born
again.
again singles, blended families.
Yes.
And
These are new terms. I'm learning new
yeah,
terms.
but these are our new realities.
Blended families.
But these are our new realities. And they are here. And India also, as a country, we know about all of this, because of our rich history and mythology. But now it is out there, center and front. And like we have what we have, the dhoom dhadaka marriages. We'll also have the dhoom dhadaka divorces. So divorces are here to stay. Accept it. It's like your aunt who comes and never leaves.
What about, in the West, especially in the US, Europe, we see a lot of billionaire divorces.
Correct.
Really brilliant. I mean, billionaires.
Bill Gates.
A couple of years back, Bill Gates,
That's
Jeff
right.
Bezos,
Correct.
Larry Ellison,
Correct.
Rupert Murdoch.
Correct.
I could go on. What's with the West and divorces?
I think they are always looking for, not that I'm an expert there, but from whatever I speak with, to my clients in the West, I think everybody is looking for that perpetual high in a marriage.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. That only exists at the beginning when you are on a romantic phase. Then you have to have, crests and troughs, and, so they don't want to go through that. And then boredom sets in. We may revile our relatives, but they play a very important role, because the entire pressure is not only on the husband and wife, because you're in that entire social fabric. But I think large divorces, the monies involved in India are also really large. You have billionaire divorces now in India also, where the wives are walking away also with a lot of money, and the husbands are, well, not so happy to give it, but it's happening.
So, I see these, not that I see matrimonial column, but I see LPA, lakhs per annum, salary kitni hai? But I don't like to generalize anything. I don't like this term, but for the sake of making it interesting, I'm asking: are women turning into gold diggers? Are men turning women into gold diggers?
I think men were always the gold diggers.
Okay, good.
Okay, because you get married to someone, and then you expect them to cook, clean, have your children, look after everything, look at your relatives,
Look at you emotionally.
look at you emotionally, look
Which
at
is
you
the biggest thing.
financially. Women are the first to sacrifice. Any financial situation, women sacrifice first, and any luxury, women are kept last. So I don't think women are gold diggers. I think men are platinum diggers. And if you get a working
Men?
wife like me, then you are definitely a double platinum digger. So I don't think this thing, and I think that term in itself, it is gender.
I qualified.
That.
I put a caveat.
Yeah, but I think men and women, we don't hate each other, but we need to coexist. And we need to appreciate that, certain qualities are now taken over by men, and certain qualities are taken over by women.
John Gray's book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Part of it is true.
Right?
Yeah, because women work a lot on emotions, and you need a lot of time to nurture a woman. Men are thinking, I've told you I love you once, ab ho gaya. But women are thinking, अरे वो तो मेरे को 10 दिन पहले बोला था, अभी का क्या, एनिवर्सरी आ रही है, फ्लावर्स तो भेज दो. अरे बट
And it's always the feeling about the
it is
behind the
always the
gesture.
feeling.
It's never about the money.
It
It's never
really,
about the flower.
no,
It's about the
it
thoughtfulness.
never,
All I
it never
learned this
is.
firsthand. So can I also ask you? And it's a sensitive question.
Sure.
You know, when it comes to children,
Yes.
you gave me two instances. One where children wanted the husband wife to get together. One they said we don't have parents to be together because they fight a lot.
Correct.
Do parents really understand the emotional cost they're putting on their children
No.
by elongating the divorce?
No, they never do. And I see a lot of times, like I said even earlier, I just try never to stop access, because I don't think the parents realize, that what the children are suffering. They think by painting one parent black and the other parent as an angel, things would be grand. No, but the children know, they understand, they suffer in silence, and they pay a heavy emotional cost for it. And they either become, I observe a lot of children, they either become people pleaser, or they go in the
Aloof.
other direction of either also being rebellious. So I think the children need to be counseled, they need to be looked after when a marriage is imploding. And I really think parents should really, they should, if for nothing else, at least sit down and talk about the children. I think that is where counselors or your family, friends, and well wishers should come in. And I really think that, at that instance, the wife and the husband should stop saying that, she's so terrible and he's so terrible, and they both don't care about the children. But that's not true, because the father may not be very effusive in his love, but he also loves the children.
Of course.
And the mother may be effusive, but sometimes she may not love the child in a way which is very good for the child, because when you paint the father as black, it's not a great situation for the child to deal with.
Absolutely. And my last question to you. If I talk to you in a year, in 3 years, 5 years, what would you have achieved? More divorces? Then that's a good thing, because liberation as we defined it. But from a social impact standpoint, you already said if you can sensitize people, you can bring more sensitization in policy making, take away the stigma from divorce in the society, that divorce is just another thing. And the person or never fails. It's the marriage that has failed.
It's the marriage that
Don't
fails.
look down on a man or woman because he or she is divorced. They may start their life afresh. So, what would you have achieved in the next 12 months, 24 months? Your book is out in 3 months.
That's correct. So I'll definitely have written this book. I've got two more coming up after that. I'll speak about that when we do our next podcast. I'm restarting. I had started a startup called Divorce Cart, which helps
Divorce
you.
cart?
Divorce Cart.
मैं chocolate बहुत खाता हूँ, एक chocolate cart तो है.
So there's Divorce Cart. So I want to restart that.
तो उसमें what do you do in
So,
divorce cart?
we were giving free legal aid to people going through a divorce. And, people would come in on our app, ask the questions. We had predefined questions. We would give these answers, and we were on 24/7. So we've just taken a step back, and, we're going to come back and make that more impactful, and also have like a, like a lawyer interface with them, so that, they have something way ahead in life. So that is something I'd like to do, and I'd
Divorce
definitely.
cart.
I think it's a great name.
From a social crusader or a social impact person, one is going to be an entrepreneur, right?
So maybe, I think that would be a very, very socially a grand thing to do, because, people getting free legal aid and being told that, look, don't do this, because I don't think it's good for you. I think it would prevent a lot of heartache, heartburn. It would reduce the burden of the court. So I think that would be my next social entrepreneurial journey. And like I said, why not the first president of the country?
Okay. And, can I, in whatever, life I've seen, I've been an entrepreneur 25 plus years.
And a great entrepreneur.
I mean, I always say, when my wife says I'm great, today she praised me, huh? Can you believe my wife praised me and that so much? So I feel good. But life is a lot about acceptance and acknowledgement.
Yes.
Now that you're successful, the rejection you got as a married person, as a wife, if I may term that, and if I am overstepping my,
not
please forgive me. But now that you're celebrated, you're accepted, I see you very comfortable in your skin. Okay, the way you come,
Yes.
does it feel good? Have you got that acceptance, and have you got that acknowledgement of the craft you have, the impact you made? How does it feel?
I think it feels great. And a lot of times, the people who had rejected me, and I wish they had the guts to say that, we were wrong. But they don't, because I think people who reject you are cowards, and I think in a way, I don't want to speak much about them because the journey is about me.
Absolutely.
And like I said, even in my book I said it is better to elevate yourself than bring down another. And these guiding
Lambi lakir
philosophies,
khicho.
yeah, these guiding philosophies have been part of my life. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Sure, sure.
So you have to have that. And just one word about meditation. I speak about spirituality, because without spirituality, you cannot accomplish anything.
Anything.
You,
I 100% agree.
you have to go ahead with that and have that in mind. And you have to just move on. You don't have to teach everybody a lesson in life. Leave that to the spiritual being up above, and revel in your success.
Yes. And if I had to say, uh, what is your success mantra? Vandana Shah's success mantra?
Live life empress size.
Live life empress size. Very good. And what should the emperor do? Well, the empress does that. But that's not another.
Appreciate the empress.
Okay, good. And genuinely, my last question. Do you have a bucket list?
Yes.
And what is that? Few guests who acknowledge they have a bucket list. Like I have one. But what is your bucket list?
My bucket list is travel. My bucket
And which
list is
locations that you want to go to?
I want to definitely go to Iceland. I want to go to Spain again.
Yeah, I watched this movie called 1586 called Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
That's right.
And I saw the architecture of Barcelona. Beautiful.
I'm not bothered about Barcelona. I want to go to Mallorca and spend. On my biggest bucket list is spending a week with Rafael Nadal, who I always say is the love of my life. I dedicate my book to him. And he is on my bucket list. And I'd like to go and watch a lot of sports across the world. I'd like to go and see F1 in Monaco. That is on my bucket list. I want to go for lit festivals across the world.
I love lit festivals.
I love them, and I just love the
I love
energy.
authors and lit festivals.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And
I love sports, by the way.
And
by the way, the F1 in Singapore is very nice. You should go for it.
But the Monaco is the scariest.
Of course, man. But in the way Singapore comes together and the way the whole energy is, it's outstanding in Singapore. Yeah. And they turn the marina.
I'll have a look at it.
It's lovely.
I've been to the one in Bahrain, but definitely the Monaco one is there. Sports, travel, write more books, spend time with family, meet Nadal, and do something great in this world. Make an impact.
No, you are already.
So make a greater impact. Fantastic. Is what I would like.
So happy to chat with you. It feels like I'm just having fun and just talking to a friend. And I'm glad that is so authentic and freewheeling. I hope you get inspired by her life, her own story of kind of building and rebuilding your life and making an impact. Divorces are here to stay. Divorce is freedom. Celebrity divorces are definitely interesting. So do give us feedback on our conversation. Thanks for your love. Keep watching it. You can watch it on BW Legal World or BW Business World or BW Wellbeing World. You can read it in the latest issue of BW Business World. And keep watching my podcast. Keep sending in your love. Thank you.
Thank you.